Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, good evening, happy tea time, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us today for 4 ways to scale and measure local SEO. I am joined by two very good friends of mine today, Steve Wiideman and Duane Forrester, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves because who better to introduce themselves than the stars themselves. So Steve, why don't you say hello, tell everybody who you are and why we're here today.
Of course, and what an amazing event to get two of the largest brands in digital marketing to be able to hang out and just talk about local search. How exciting is that, right? This is amazing. So I'm Steve Wiideman. I'm currently running a small group of digital marketing consultants here in the Los Angeles area. I'm also an adjunct professor at UC San Diego, Cal State Fullerton, and Fullerton Community College. And we recently wrote a textbook. My co-author Scott Cowley and I wrote SEO Strategy and Skills, which you can find on Stukent if you're a teacher and want to use a textbook online. I do a lot of work in the multi-location area, so a lot of what we're going to be talking through today will share some of those experiences, what's worked, what doesn't work, how do we track things, and I'm looking forward to sharing my knowledge with you.
Thank you so much, Steve. And Duane, go right ahead.
Hey, gang. Thank you very much, Katie. My name is Duane Forrester, VP of Industry Insights at Yext. I've been around the industry for about almost 25 years now. I've written a couple of books on making money online and conversion optimization. I ran the Bing Webmaster Tools program, built and launched that. Worked with the core search team at Bing for a while. Was at Microsoft almost a decade. Obviously, I am in an anonymous hotel room in a random location on the surface of our Earth. Today finds me in Toronto, back in my home country of Canada, although I will say I am Steve's neighbor. I live just outside of Los Angeles as well.
Oh man, right, all these California people. Go Texas.
Yeah.
We were whining before the call about the how cold it's getting in Costa Mesa and Orange County. Oh, it's awful, right? And people in
tragic,
going,
man.
You guys are so crazy.
Yeah, no, you don't know cold. I could attest to that right now. Exactly. It's not the same.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for everyone on the call. We are really excited to have you here today. So to kick things off, to jump right in, we are going to launch a poll just to get a test to see where everybody is in their local SEO knowledge, their local SEO comfort. But while we take that poll, I am going to do a few housekeeping matters first. So we do absolutely welcome chat and questions on this webinar. It is an interactive feature. We would love to hear from you, but we do ask you put those questions in the Q&A section on the right side of your screen. You'll see that little column there. We will answer all of your questions at the end of the presentation in the order in which they were received. So we do love that you pop into the chat, ask those questions, but if it's in the chat, there is a chance that myself, Duane, or Steve will not see that. So if you have a question, please put in that Q&A. We will get to it at the end of the presentation. So let's take a look at how those poll results are doing. Looks like the poll is closed. I'd love to see that poll come up. There we go. And it looks like we have some mixed reviews here. So 40% of our respondents said they feel super confident in their local SEO strategy, definitely. 55% said that they could use some help, and 5% said not at all. What is local SEO? So we got a mixed bag here of respondents, which I think will make the discussion all that more interesting and then all that more fun. So let's dive right in. Steve, take us away.
You got it. And thank you again, everybody. I know your time is important, and hopefully what we'll share today is actionable. And I'm a very tactical kind of person, so I try to put in as much content as I can that you can take action on today. So let's get going. Some of the topics we're going to be covering today, those foundational 4 things that we alluded to, include looking at our data and our data accuracy. We're going to talk about our data visibility across the web and how it plays a role in our search engine rankings. We're going to talk about local pages and this amazing study we did of 300 location pages for different restaurants and food chains. And then we'll talk about reputation a bit, ratings and reviews, and some things that you can do to manage that process and to measure the results from it. Our key performance indicators, that we'll be talking through include traffic and revenue, the obvious, right? We want to make sure that, at the bottom line, that this is actually generating revenue for us and not just some fun thing we're doing to keep busy. We'll talk about the data accuracy and ways that we can use some of the tools that you hear about today, to do that, to actually measure the accuracy of your business data. And then local and organic keyword rankings, and another cool tool that you could use to do that with. Our placement growth over time and how we're appearing more often off our website, and then reputation, some things that we can do there to kind of boost that. And then the diagram here, you can see, what we look at when we think about local SEO is the data sort of being at the cell of the nucleus, right? There's no local SEO if your business can't be validated as being in the place that it's supposed to be at. And we'll kind of talk through each of those different items as we go through it, but kind of keep this diagram in mind, and we'll make sure after the recording today that everybody gets a copy of it. So let's move on to the next slide. So those foundations we just talked about, the data accuracy, and Duane, I made sure I threw Bing in there because I know they're just as important as Google, even though everybody seems to be obsessed with Google. But it turns out people actually use Bing. My parents use Bing. Every so often I use Bing. It's important, right? We love it. And Bing is, by the way, the most open search engine to webmasters than any other search engine out there. They just launched a new thing that allows your URLs to get indexed like instantly. It's amazing.
Index now. Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep.
so data accuracy is going to be important, and we're gonna talk through ways that you can make that data stay consistent and monitor it. Those location pages, I'm going to walk through some of the things that we found out and some ways that you can evangelize for multi-location search and say, we would have a competitive advantage of X% if we did this thing, as a way to help push through things where you get those stakeholders that just don't want to approve budgets. We're also going to talk about ways that you can get your business data found off the website and start promoting your business and your multi-location business at scale. I'll show you some ways to do that. And the reputation side of things, because nobody clicks on a 1-star rating. And we want to make sure that we're telling search engines that there's a pattern of positive behavior that users are responding to as it relates to our reputation. So we're going to talk about those things and how we can scale them as multi-location businesses or franchises, and share some studies and examples of things that we did. So hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as we enjoyed doing the research, and we'll get the ball rolling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to pass the buck on this one to the local business data flows. Haley, was this your slide?
Yeah, so this is our general checklist for local business digital workflows. So what should you be looking at as a local SEO if you're really trying to focus on these things on a daily and a weekly basis? So daily, if you care about local, you should be checking your website metrics every single day, because in a local world, in a local site, it's going to change every single day. You don't really have that luxury of looking at it on a weekly or monthly basis. Our reviews, we have to know what's happening every single day. If you got a bad review, you want to be on top of that immediately. If you got a good review, you want to be on top of that immediately. You want to say thank you. You want to engage with your customers. Your social media, again, social media moves lightning fast. You want to know what's happening with those metrics immediately. And finally, your Google My Business stats and data. Google My Business is a key element in local strategy, and you should know exactly what's happening there as much as possible. Now, for your weekly, we really recommend sending out a newsletter to internal stakeholders about what's been going on with your weekly information, because not everybody is going to need the nitty-gritty details, but they are going to need to know the general overview. So send out that information in newsletter format, give them the quick insights, and see what's going on. Your weekly tracking reports. Give high-level insights, understand how keywords are moving week over week and things like that for the rest of the business. And then finally, have a to-do list. Keep yourself organized. Local SEO is like herding cats. It feels like a lot, but if you just know what you're doing, if you have a task list, if you have some idea of how things should be moving, you can take a deep breath and actually take your weekend off, because you know exactly what should be coming next.
Katie, can I add something on this one?
Absolutely.
So I just want to, because I know to your point about herding cats, right? This feels like an awful lot of work. And when you're a smaller location footprint, even just a single location footprint, this feels like an awful lot of time. First off, this is table stakes today, so you can't get putting your time in on it. But I'd encourage you, take a look at, take your website metrics, understand what is crucial to your business. Take that data, you create the reports that you look at weekly from that data on top. and that informs your to-do and your work list. So like, it looks like there's a lot that we're presenting in here and suggesting, but a lot of these things just are a natural flow of information. So if foot traffic is your number one metric that's the most important to your business, or revenue is, then you take that and use that to drive the reporting and then make the decisions on what you're going to work on. And that gives you a prioritized workflow where everything else fits into it. Okay. It may not be as linear as what we're stating here. Some things may be more important to you, but I'm going to, Katie talked about how important social media is and how fast it moves. Like, I need you folks to realize social media is not a broadcast area, right? It's not an area where you just tell people what you want, you push information out. It's a conversation. And that conversation is happening about your business, whether you want it to or not, whether you're involved or not, it's happening. So think of it more like alignment with reviews and the sentiment that you understand from reviews. That's what social media can unlock for. And that will then help you understand the metrics you're looking at and then create that workflow and that work list. So it might seem like there's a lot there, but you can streamline a lot of this.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And we, even once a month, if you have to, just align with each team member, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
But really it's holding everybody accountable to, what our goals are every month, because you'll look back and you're like, oh my God, it's been 6 months. How'd we do on managing our data? How'd we do on these things? Like, we should have really been checking in every month or every week. I love the weekly workflow idea, especially if you've got a team that can work at a pace like that.
Well, one other thing.
Do you ever find it challenging to show the importance of local to big picture people, or showing how local really moves the needle?
Yeah, and there's 2 key points to this. First off, you have to establish critical metrics, KPIs, let's call them, the key performance indicators that matter to your business. And those need to align with company goals. So you will take the cue from the company goal. You will then bring in your metrics to match up with that, show you how it's supporting it. And that is the critical piece to proving that value. Another key component to this, though, is understanding what the consumer is doing, what their patterns of behavior and activity look like. And Steve, I think we're going to get into some of this data. But on the previous slide, we talked just a brief mention on, does Google know where you're at? The answer to that is yes, absolutely. Whether you like it or not, Google knows exactly where you are at all times. And let me be crystal clear about this. If you want a graphic example of how accurate this data is, if you have an iPhone, and I imagine it works the same way on an Android device, open up your image library, your pictures, and sort them by location and start zooming in. So this is what I did in my living room. I started looking into it one day and realized that the degree of accuracy to which my iPhone can track me can be split between the front room in my house, my kitchen, my backyard, and my workshop in my backyard. So 10-foot increments is capable of understanding my position. So if my device is capable of understanding my position that closely, and I have Google apps on it that are reporting things like location back to Google, there's a lot of information that can be understood about the consumer, and critical that you understand information about your consumer as well. And that's why I'm excited to get these numbers here, because
Thanks, Duane. Absolutely. Well, let's keep the slides going, and so let's talk about the first 2: data accuracy and data visibility. I kind of combined the 2 because they're very similar. The first part is that data accuracy, and there are some places that search engines will look to sort of validate your information, not just trusting what you give them. When you go to being local and to Google My Business, you're saying, hey, I'm at this location. They want to validate that. They want to make sure that it's real and that you're a real location in the place that you're claiming that you are. So really important to make sure that that's a part that we're going to monitor over time. And this is a screenshot from one of our favorite tools. You might recognize this one, Duane. And the idea here, of course, is just making sure when we log in that whether it's once a day, once a week, or once a month, the more frequently the better, is that all of our locations are matching up and aligning with the information that we're trying to get syndicated across the web. To really promote that business information so that web crawlers can find it more often and see that you're becoming more and more visible, that you're still in business, right? You haven't gone dormant and just stopped showing up off your website. We want to make sure that we're in all the search engines, all the navigation engines, like here, right? I think it's a Nokia thing, TomTom, MapQuest. We want to make sure we're in those social local directories like Facebook and Yelp, Foursquare, of course. And then, we're going to look at some of the industry directories too. If you're a lawyer, there's at least 20 different law firm directories, 5 that actually get a lot of traffic and could be, referral traffic for you. City-specific directories. What if your local chamber of commerce or community center has a directory, and maybe there's a neighboring business that says businesses nearby that you could be on that list, so that search engines are finding that information more often. And the last are more generalized directories that might be your merchant circles and so forth. And while they don't necessarily generate a lot of traffic, they do get crawled often, and they could be another great citation of your business's name, address, phone number, and some of those search terms that you want to become semantic to. Perhaps breakfast delivery might be a keyword that's important to you. So wherever you have those opportunities, you drop in your location descriptions. And all of these types of sites will take bulk feeds as well. So you can just send them a spreadsheet basically of all your information in most cases. And it'll take all of your locations in one swoop, as opposed to, hey, what are you doing for the next year? Do you want to submit 4,000 locations to Yelp? So all of them will take a bulk feed for you. And some of them are getting even smarter, and they'll actually take it from an API. So go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, like, this directory conversation, I have this conversation probably 10 times a week. And people basically look at it and say, well, what's the point? And the point is exactly as you described, Steve. But there's other layers to this. Like, for instance, when Google takes a look at your business, it understands that you can make a mistake in your GMB listing or anywhere online. So it doesn't just trust that you entered everything correctly. It does a lap around the internet to check to see what else the internet knows about you. And when all of the phone numbers match, when all of the street addresses match, it feels confident in the answer it gives the consumer.
Right.
But if your GMB has a typo or an error in it and everything else on the internet matches, Google has to make a decision on, do I trust the previous version of this data, which matches my internet lab? Or do I trust the new version, which looks to be a typo? Well, we know Google's not going to trust that. They're going to ignore that and continue with the old. So you need to control that conversation. The other side to this is, and Steve, you touched on this, and it's fantastic. Like, a company like Here or TomTom, you may be thinking, why would they care? You care a great deal because those systems are what are natively embedded in most of the automotive navigation applications that are powering today's cars. So all of those auto manufacturers want to move to a subscription model, and most of them have, for navigation. So every automobile that's sold in North America and you buy navigation built into it, you're pulling from these databases. And if you're not covered there correctly, then when someone gets in their car after paying $1,000 for that option and they tell the car to navigate there, the data is incorrect. That's a problem for your business. So, and that's just one example. Bit of a deep dive on why this expanded network is so critical to companies today.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Let's keep moving and talk about local page SEO. And this one I'm really excited about because I mentioned, our gang over here got together. We put this gigantic Google sheet together, and we started going through like 300 of these local pages, 101 of which were in the food and dining area. And we looked at like Starbucks and McDonald's and basically every major chain. The more locations, the better. In fact, we started at the list with the most locations and worked our way down. And what was really interesting in this is we started to weigh, what their keyword rankings were, where they ranked at a certain time, and what were the attributes that might have contributed to them ranking better than a competing listing. The screenshot over here is just an example of Applebee's, one of many chains that offer their own location pages for each one. So, and again, our goal was just to understand what are those key things we need to pay attention to on our local pages that could play a role in our actual keyword ranking. So this is basically a breakdown of that study. The table you see on this slide, you can see that hyperlocal content, which I'll get into next, was number one. That was the number one differentiator in high ranking pages versus those that weren't performing well on maps or organic, followed by custom images, links to the location-specific Foursquare and Facebook profiles and Yelp, directions, link, page size, all of these played a role. The ones that you see that are TBD are ones that we noticed all of the restaurant chains were lacking. We really didn't see any virtual tours on pages. We didn't see any using coupons. We saw them in other industries, but we really didn't see it in food and dining, and a location video. So to me, these are unique areas of opportunity to test, since nobody really did it. So it'll be a fun thing to kind of figure out. But our goal here was to put some numbers together so that the rest of us SEOs out there who are going to the stakeholders and saying, hey, if we do this local SEO thing, I can drive more business to and revenue to our website. All we need is to really put some things together for each of these local pages. And what happens is a lot of stakeholders are like, well, I think most of our traffic goes to our menu, our primary locations page, and our homepage. So we really don't need this local. Well, as it turns out, some 30% of this franchise traffic are going to the local pages. From two of the brands that we manage right now, I can tell you it's 30%. That's a lot. It's a lot of revenue, in some cases into the millions in online orders. So it can be a huge thing for you. So my hope is you can take this and say, hey, boss, here's why, or hey, team, here's why we should be doing this. If we can do some hyperlocal content, then we can have 107% competitive advantage over, the nearest competitor to us. Hey, if we had a link for directions, that gives us a 16% competitive edge. So we use those numbers as a way to help evangelize, for multi-location search in the cases where somebody's got a budget and they're being a little bit stingy with it.
Steve, I just want to call something out with this too,
please.
And this stands out to me in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
There's also there's a split here on the type of work that's being accomplished. And if you're looking at it from a technical SEO perspective, the value that you will extract from doing that work is clearly much less than content derived.
Right.
Because customers want answers to questions. Mm-hmm. They assume your website will be fast. And if not, that's not the customer's problem. They will go elsewhere. So it's about answering that question. And I can't stress this enough. If you have the right answers to the questions that consumers want, you can overcome some of those technical hurdles without even doing the technical work, because Google will simply pull you forward because you are the best.
Right.
And it's like that's really important, I think, to just like for folks to understand that, right? If you're focused on, well, page speed is our mantra and that's what we've got to get nailed down, that's not the right, that's not the return that I think should be chasing. Right. There are other things that matter a bit more.
It's nothing worse than that, seeing a page that has all the right elements, but you turn your head and you're like, what am I looking at? Right?
Yeah.
Because the search engines are seeing what they need, but the users aren't. And that's, it's a marriage of all three of the principles that go into organic SEO. It's making sure our content's relevant to what the person queried, that our content is being mentioned and recognized and linked to off the website, and that our content stands out in search results to get clicked on and is helpful enough that they stay on our website and don't return to the search results and choose a competitor.
Right.
So we think about all three of those and we marry them to create, ultimately an SEO strategy. But you can't just have one without the other. Your content could be great, but if it takes 9 seconds to load, forget it. So I agree with you 100%.
Exactly.
So let's talk about hyperlocal content here. And here's the complaint I get most of the time when we talk about, creating localized content is I can't scale that. I have 4,000 storage locations. I can't scale to create 4,000 unique pages, but you can. There are ways to do it. In fact, we're in the middle of doing it right now. And pretty soon, hopefully I'll have a good case study for the next time we do this event to show how we were able to pull this off for nearly 3,500 locations. In this diagram, by the way, you can see, if you see my bio in the big marker, I actually put the link directly to the local study. So if you wanted to get a copy of this infographic and the things that we're talking about, you're more than welcome to. But 107% competitive advantage if you can do this. And it is hard to scale, but the ways to do it is you can start by just embedding in a native first-party review app. I know Yext has a feature for that. And somebody goes to your local page and it says, tell us how we did. And you can leave a review
Yep.
right there, and it goes through the system and has to go through moderations. You don't have to worry about somebody saying, look, I was able to use profanity on this local page, right? So there's the native review component of it, which is the best, in my opinion, because now you're getting real users that are, sharing their experiences using words that describe the products and services, which will help the page to rank. Questionnaires. You could shoot off a questionnaire to every location manager and say, fill out these questions. Google Forms are easy. I know in some cases, some of the challenges we've had there are maybe 300 or 400 locations are ran by another corporation, and there aren't individual franchisees. So you're basically asking them to fill out 300 surveys. So sometimes you can get a little bit of a roadblock there, but location managers, right? Outsource data mining. This can be very time consuming. This is the path we ended up going down for one of our accounts. And it works. You create a CRM or use a CRM or create a Google Sheet, and you basically load up all the data for specific columns. Things like nearest stadium. Hey, are you hungry after the game at such and such stadium? Come by, ABC restaurant. So there's some ways that you can create some dynamic content, by data mining things that are nearby. What's the city, known for? How far is it from the freeway? What's the local sports team or stadium or event venue or whatever? And you can use that and tailor it into what's close, what's nearby, and resonate with somebody who just went to a museum or something nearby. And then getting creative. Sometimes you just come up with these crazy ideas of, hey, what can we do? Hey, let's get, if everyone's really bought in at all the locations, let's do some fun things on location to get some hyper local content, and let's just load it up into a Google Sheet somewhere and let somebody at corporate do whatever they want with it. There's some really creative, fun things that you can do if you're willing as a corporation to allow your locations to participate. They want more foot traffic, let them load you up with content, and then turn that content into something that's going to help you drive more traffic. Keeping going, our location images give you an 84% competitive advantage. And I know the hang up here, right? Scaling it. And sometimes, we saw this with Skechers. Skechers had some locations that were in sketchy neighborhoods, right? We had these areas where they had these amazing stores, but if you were to take pictures of the parking lot or the area around it, it just wasn't very attractive. So they didn't want to put those pictures on there. Worse, because they're in fashion, if they took pictures and people could see the shoes, they might get frustrated when they go in because those shoes were from last year, right? So you got to be careful in some cases on how you scale, and just make it clear if you do have some seasonality going on, in the image, that, hey, images here might not represent current products, and then you still have current images. Everyone's got an iPhone or an Android. Just start taking some pictures and let corporate kind of fold through those or flip through them and see what ones can be used and which ones need to be kind of held off on.
Or even, Steve, to that point, because this is so important, to that point, empower your local managers, create a framework for them and tell them, here's what a good photo looks like, here's how to take it, 3 simple steps. Make sure it's landscape, make sure the lighting's okay, make sure there's no people in it, take the photo, upload it here. Worst case scenario, you have to tell someone to take it down, or you take it down. But enable these people to have a part of it, because I'm telling you right now, images draw people to your store like nothing else. It is a huge comfort builder when I know what to expect as I approach you, because I already have the image of the location in my mind. That is such a relationship building bridge. It's hugely powerful and way too often overlooked.
Absolutely. And those images, all have things in them that Google and Bing can pick out. There's this thing, Mike Blumenthal was talking about it recently, that Google's image recognition API will actually look at the images that you're sharing in your profiles and on your page, and be able to show your page for queries that include words that were discovered using that automated artificial intelligence engine. It's pretty genius what search engines can pick up now.
I'm going to do less than 1 minute on this. Okay, everyone's familiar with BERT as a concept. You need to get familiar with MUM as a concept, because MUM, M-U-M, is actually the replacement for BERT, and it's 1,000 times more powerful. Google's word, not mine. What it is capable of doing is looking at images through videos, listening to audio, reading text, all of the data that's available. One system can now parse that information and take the value out of it. So to Mike's point and to Steve's point on this, yeah. So those photos that have products in them, or things like you're known for a sale once a year and there's the big banner in the background, those are very they're just cues in the background that the search engine can pull forward from. So you don't need to worry about it, but it's an opportunity for you. And if you're not taking the images or you're using a stock image over and over again, you're missing that opportunity that the newest technology that the search engine is deploying represents for a business. Again, but answering questions. So figure out the questions, produce the content.
I know you're talking about mom, but I'm going to tell you, no one can replace my mom. She's just
No, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna go see my mom this week, and she's awesome.
as you should. So yeah, it can be an easy thing that you can start implementing, even if you're rolling out one a week, one a month. Just start getting those images on there. And one thing to consider post pandemic that we've noticed a difference in is show pictures of employees wearing masks and doing the takeout and carside and curbside if you're a restaurant. Show them addressing safety and cleaning tables. It really matters to a lot of people. Coupons
Absolutely.
is something where we noticed no food and dining brands were utilizing it. I remember a few years ago, I saw a few that were testing it. With Skechers, we were testing it for a while. We used a single code. It wasn't a QR code, a single code, just so that we could track when somebody goes into the store and uses it and show use types. And then most people went for the buy one, get one instead, and we couldn't track as much. But at least we could see patterns. So you see a pattern of growth that indicates that people are going to the website and coming into the stores. But the great thing about QR codes now is it's so well done that you can actually do online to offline attribution and know exactly when that person did a query and went to your local page and then went into the store and made a purchase and showed that QR code. You can actually quantify it now, and the SEO specialist can come back and say, hey, thanks to our efforts, we were able to see redemptions of this QR code go from $10,000 a month to $120,000 a month over the course of last year. Now you can quantify your SEO efforts, get rollover budgets for the following year, for the next year, and do even more with your local marketing. This was from a site called Voucherify that I found this one on. And then subpages. We started this back in 2013, 2014 with Meineke Car Care Centers. We said, hey, what if we created a subpage for oil change and a subpage, underneath our primary location page for each of the services that we offer at locations, and maybe even a reviews page or a jobs page or a specials page, right? What if we created some of those subpages and then we hyper localize them so that the titles and the headings, and all the content were made for the person that we're in, that's in that particular city doing the search. And I know John Mueller and other folks have talked about stop creating, all these duplicate pages for every location. But if you're making them unique and helpful, and each page is giving them the information that they need, and they're not having to use it as a doorway to go to some other page, they get what they need from that page. It still works. It's still helpful, and we still see ranking. So here's 3 examples for takeout and delivery and jobs. And try it. If you do restaurant jobs and anywhere there's an Applebee's, our listing is on the first page, and we're helping bring in staff during a period where the hiring is slow thanks to the great resignation. So this is a huge win for your business if you can take the time to really scale your local pages beyond just that single page, but instead also create a subpage for each of those main business objectives. And the last part is reputation. So this is the last thing that you want to be able to scale. I know there's a tool in Yext that allows you to do that, but it's not just about a one-time, let's go crazy this month and do something with reviews. It's no, let's develop and build and grow a program that incentivizes our locations to continue to improve the quality, quantity, ongoing velocity, and the believability of the reviews that we're receiving. And that takes putting some guides together, like Duane had mentioned earlier, creating something where there's an example. Here's how to respond to reviews. Here's how to respond to positive reviews. There's some things that you can do, and the believability has to be there. So we really want to encourage people when they do leave reviews to be specific. What'd you buy? Did you get delivery? Did you get takeout? What order or what items did you order on the menu? How was the service? Questions like that, because those can all augment our organic SEO strategy if we're, able to leverage that content. And you can see that last listing over here, the florist, with two reviews and 3 stars. Nobody's going to click that listing. Very few, if any, will, and eventually that listing is going to go away. And the listings that are more helpful, that earn more reviews over time, are just going to bury it. And if no one's clicking on your listing, that affects your click-through rates and gives an inference that maybe that listing wasn't very helpful. So if for no other reason, do it for your CTR, do it for that click-through rate.
I will just add to this that you should be targeting to hit at least 80% of your reviews with a response. Doing anything less, you're not staying ahead of the curve, and that's positive, negative, it's everything. You don't get to cherry pick. You have to be involved. The search engine, if Google's going to recommend you, they want to know that you're a good recommendation. And if you consistently ignore people leaving comments about problems, that's not good. And Google, I'm looking at AG Flower and Party Supply, and I'm like, 1-800-Flowers is going to show up here with a service area page, and just they're going to be gone, and that's it. And they'll wonder what happened. And it's all about drive the reviews. I went to lunch today here in Toronto, and our server asked, how was everything? And we said, oh, it was delicious. And she said, can I ask you to leave a review on Google for us? And I was like, yeah, just that simple. Yeah. Done. So
it's funny how many times you'll go out to a restaurant and they just won't ask. And it's just a simple thing. Hey, while I go cash you out, if you're willing to, maybe leave us a review on whatever site you happen to, to share feedback on.
Absolutely. Don't incentivize it, obviously, but there's nothing wrong with asking people to share their feedback with you. That's entirely acceptable.
Absolutely.
So we will have this be our last slide because we do want to leave time for questions. We're going to go through how to measure success, and then we're going to make sure that we get a couple of those questions in there.
Love it. That works perfect. And we're near the end. The other slides, by the way, if you want to get a copy of them, just talk about KPIs and as a template that we use to break down the KPIs based on the responsibility. What are the KPIs for tech? What are the KPIs for off page? What are the KPIs our clients care about? Keyword, market share. So definitely take a look at that. I'll make sure everybody gets a link to it. So the way that we think about measuring success as it relates to multi-location or franchise SEO corresponds to those fundamentals we talked about. The accuracy of our business data. Whether you're using Yext or another platform, make sure you are monitoring to make sure that your listings are staying up to date and the information's correct. The technical part of the performance, making sure our local pages continue every month to improve in page speed and helpfulness, that our bounce rates go down, that conversion rates go up. Every month we should be pouring water and sunlight on these local pages because 30% of our traffic is going to them. Improving the visibility off the website, maybe doing something creative with events, local events. You can put some extra markup on your page and stand out a little bit more in the search results. You can get your neighboring businesses to share that event and include the name, address, and phone number of the business for those people who want to attend the event. Some really cool creative things that you could do for getting visibility off your website. And of course, the syndication tools help as well. We talked about the quality, quantity, and velocity of ratings and believability, of course. And then the other thing that I think the business owners, the stakeholders really care about more than anything is revenue and traffic. So we're making sure that our local SEO efforts are doing that. And as it pertains to Google, we might actually add some UTM codes so that we do a little bit of segmentation in our analytics where the medium is organic and the source is Google, right? And then we can customize the content URL to have maybe the location ID. That way we can do some advanced analytics down the road to show that maps and organic are doing really well. And here's the segmentation of both of them, thanks to the UTMs. And with that, I'm going to wrap up these slides and pass it back over to you, Ellie.
And we're ready for questions. So just in the interest of time, we're going to dive right in. So our first question is from Julius. What is the greatest misconception about local SEO? And for me and my customers, it's that the same strategy in San Francisco is going to work in Boston. and even on a global scale. The same strategy that worked in Berlin is going to work in Sydney, and that's just not true at all. If countries are speaking the same language, you have to really go back to that hyper localization, that hyper local content. You might have completely different competitors from one city to the next. So I'm really emphasizing Steve and Dwayne's point about that hyper localization. I think that is the greatest misconception, is how important that strategy is.
Yeah, and Dwayne and I were talking earlier about how we need all the things, not just one or the other. So I think that's the big misconception. You don't need just Google My Business optimization. You need, content optimization. You need off-page visibility. You need to stand out in the search results and have good, a good appearance there. I think your
user experience plays a huge role here, right? And it overarches every. And this brings in Katie's point, and it brings in Steve's point. Like, you can't. I just had lunch with a client. And today, and we were talking about the nuanced difference in phrasing between Canadian French and French spoken in Paris. And a lot of the core words are the same words, but their inflection and their intent are used differently. So you can't just simply say, oh, I have a French plan, and off you go, because everywhere French is spoken, it's not used the same way. Same thing with Spanish, same thing with English. Like, you have to be aware of those things at a global scale. And interestingly, even as a local business, you have to think global, because that's what you have access to. And you have a global, literally in many cities now, a global village of people coming to you. And they're coming to you with their own expectations. And you have to be a part of that.
Absolutely. Next question.
This is from Donna. We know that Google is more and more keeping people in their properties. Are you seeing drops in traditional organic traffic across the board? I'm going to say no for my customers. I think organic as a whole is still super important. But for Dwayne and Steve, what do you guys think?
Our breakfast chain is up. We're doing great. We're up, I think, like 13% this month. From 2019, we're up over 400% in off-prem because of addressing takeout, delivery, curbside, carside, all that kind of stuff. So I think if you've addressed off-premises, you should be thriving compared to 2019. But stop measuring against 2020. That year was, completely different than any other year.
Yeah. So what I'm going to add to this is, first off, I will mirror what Steve's saying there. That's really important, right? Unless you were already in 2019 purely moving toward an e-commerce model, you don't be looking at 2020 because that shift so large that it's easily throwing wrenches into things. But it's I can't stress, like, there are no shortcuts. There are no easy paths anymore. Like, this requires everything you've got, and that the critical that to me is where the bar is at this point. So, anyway, that's all I'm going to say.
Great question, and I think I know what Donna that was. If it's the Donna I'm thinking about, thanks for joining us today. Donna came from U-Haul, another multi-location brand.
Oh, awesome! Yeah.
And we have time for one more question. So any question that we didn't get to, we will follow up with you. And there is a Yext specific one in there. So that I'm going to leave that. That's all you. You're going to take that one. But our final question is from Beth. And it's, are local images as important for service area businesses without a storefront? We offer services in many areas and are struggling to scale local images on each page.
I would absolutely. Any image that you have has a binary code behind it that can be read and interpreted and used to help with keyword rankings, especially if you have like location pages where you're serving a certain area where you don't need to have a name, address, phone number specifically on the page. You're probably not going to appear as well in Google Maps, but your organic listing for that location could still do really well. And you can have, reviews from people who've purchased from that area, right? Where you match it up from their, like the client database, and somebody says, puts in what city they're in. You can actually tie that to the page itself. So you can have UGC, you can have custom images, you can do all sorts of things at a hyperlocal level with a dedicated landing page, even without showing an address. Like if you're a plumber or something, we've seen it work for. We have a plumber in Sherman Oaks that we did some support for a year back, and it worked. In fact, they actually asked one of our team members to wear a polo with their logo on it, just because we all look a little more preppy over here than some of their plumbers, and and so we'll label the images accordingly and show pictures of the people. We'll label it as plumber.jpg or Sherman Oaks -plumber, .jpg and wearing a plumber shirt and carrying a thing. So yeah, I think images, you know, for sure work for service area businesses. I don't know, Duane, what do you think?
You know, honestly, Steve, I'm going to agree with you on this. You and I just tend to naturally agree on these things. I will say this. You need to take things like your imagery very seriously, right? Like I do a lot of work in New York. I work with a lot of companies, and I see photos out there all the time that Google has taken and put in place because it's what it has access to. And there is a pile of garbage in front of the business. And as a business owner, like, you have to make sure that the images that represent your business don't have things like that. Just make sure you're representing yourself in the best way possible. We're talking about a couple of minutes of time once to cover the base. And yeah, it's hard to scale that locally. But again, we'll go back to what we talked about earlier, which is empower your people at a local level to do this. You don't need to have the corporate office send out a professional photographer and do all of that. This is not going to erode your brand if the location manager goes and takes the images and then sends them through to you. It's a process either way, but one of those processes moves you forward quick. One of them just simply won't.
Yeah.
So,
as an adjunct professor, I can tell you there are thousands of students who would die to have the opportunity to jump in and help you with anything. Some of them for free, just to get the experience. So start with some of the colleges, put up something on the cork board or job boards there, and say, looking for a marketing intern who wants to get some experience, and then connect them with, somebody who's a consultant that can be their guide. And you've got somebody who's willing and able to do some of the grunt work. And if with any luck, they'll prove themselves to you over a few months, and you'll get yourself a permanent employee who can manage that local SEO role for you, or a specific DMA, or even just start with one location to build a case study so that you can scale to do more locations. But yeah, and if you want any of my students, please, reach out to me afterwards. I'll make some introductions for you.
And with that, we are out of time. So I would like to reiterate that we will be sending out a recording of this presentation and the slides itself. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's been a blast. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you out. And we wish you all the success in the world with your local SEO. And we will hopefully see you soon. Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Duane.
Thanks, gang.